Welcome back to the NFL Trades Podcast. Wow, what a draft that took place last night. Anything from Schroeder falling out of the second round, Falcons sending a future first to the Rams, which was very shocking, and the Packers finally drafting a receiver in the first time in 23 years. When I was born. Today, we're going to have a guest making a return for this one. How you doing, Dylan? Great. It's great to have you back. It's been a long time coming, so hopefully, hopefully we can get back to it, and we'll see. We'll go from there. We have a lot to talk about, and hopefully, before we close this out, we'll have some concluding thoughts, and we will talk about how day two will shape out. And let's just get right into the first pick, which obviously has been a chalk pick since February in Cameron Ward. You have any thoughts on this pick, Dylan? You don't think he's the best quarterback. So we had a few people that, it was kind of obviously it was, not the consensus opinion to go this way. But we did have a few people that were on the Shadur's train. I don't think there's anybody else that had anybody else as the QB1 in this draft, unless you talk to some corner of the internet. You don't have Shador. Oh, so you are the corner of the internet. Yeah, so we'll talk about the Jackson Dart pick, and I'll talk more about him when we get there. But yeah, I think he definitely I he will be. Okay. So you're saying he has a higher ceiling than any of these guys. Okay. Yeah, so Ward, it's very interesting how we got here. I was looking back at things in May, and obviously before the season started, he was not, he wasn't considered a first round pick even as a quarterback, right? He was, if you put him in the first round back in May, it was more so just like you think he's gonna get there, and a lot of people were hyping him up to get there, and when he went to Miami, man, it just worked. Everything worked out for him. So his tape popped for everybody, and then people were able to understand all the other intangibles and other aspects to his game that they may not realized in his Washington State. Yeah, right. Washington State. His Washington State tape. So, yeah, I wrote that down. Yep. And it's you can't even forget about like he barely had any offers coming out. Like, and you just because like a zero star does not mean you can't get D1 offers. But the offer that he ended up taking was Incarn Word and just plays there. I don't remember how many years he played there, but he played there, and then he worked his way up, and that's just kind of how it's always been for him. He's had to work his way up, and he's gotten to where he's at because of that. And to see that emotional post-selection interview right after, which by the way did not air on ESPN for some reason. Um, we were watching. I was at the bar, and we were watching both ESPN and the NFL Network one, and the ESPN one did not have him talking. You were watching on ESPN? Oh, you're saying, oh yeah, I see, and you didn't see it. So like he started talking about God and stuff. So I always wonder if that's kind of why they left it off. But you never know what. Yeah, you never know with ESPN what they're doing. So um, yeah, it was a very heartfelt. He almost like cried during the little interview that he had, because he was talking about like how the whole kid in him um, is just so happy because what he's had to go through in terms of being undermined and overlooked his entire career. Not even getting offers, not even getting really sawn, you know, out of Cartward, having to go to Washington State, which is I think they're low, or they're low tier FBS, I believe, right? Not they're not FCS. So going to a low tier FBS, and then making your way up to a Power Five. So it's definitely awesome to see how he's come up, and only wishing anything but the best, or not anything but the best, but wishing for the best for him. And this had to be the pick. Like, you couldn't go anywhere else. I know you might say otherwise, but this is the yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think Shadur needs to sit a year wherever he goes. So he does not, like, just because he can work on certain things as an NFL quarterback in NFL schemes and NFL like drills and everything. Like, it's gonna work out more better for him, because what he's struggling with right now, he cannot struggle in the pros or he'll be screwed. And that's he's kind of has some of the same struggles that Caleb Williams had coming out, or not coming out of college, but going into the NFL. So that's only going to exacerbate it for him, because it's just going to be more of a bigger problem for him than it would have been for Caleb Williams. All right, let's go to the Jaguars trading up for Travis Hunter. Okay, so I'll tell you why. They wanted him throughout this entire process. So the Browns, what they did is they told teams, we are not interesting. Well, they told teams and they told the media, we are not interested in trading this pick. They were at first, and then they started saying, hey, we're not doing that. And that's because they started talking with the Jags, and like you said, which you perceive as a fleece, because they gave up a future first and a second round pick, and and a fourth round pick, but the first and the second are of most importance here. And you know, obviously this deal was probably, it got done on draft day, but it was probably, made up weeks ago, right? And so the Browns obviously were like, well, we're not trading out of this pick, because we don't want anybody else to think that they can come up here and get it. We're set. Yeah, well, do they want Shooter? That's what we'll get into, because I don't think they want Shooter with that pick. Now the thing, like I just told you, is they have two picks there. They have two picks there, so they might make a decision there. Like, I don't know, but I really don't think that's where they'll go. But we'll see. I would love Shadur to go to the Rams, by the way. I would love that. But um, Giant. Okay. So, oh yeah. So we're okay. So your boy. Yeah, and that's where I wrote down, will he play much defense here? Because I know, so with him going to the Browns, obviously he wouldn't have played much defense at all. And so here now, obviously with Jags, obviously one of their needs was corner, so he could play. And I've heard, Trump things about around, like, could he play safety even here? Just anything, any type of packages on the defensive side where he can just, you know, get in, get on the field, and I just don't know like where they would put him, what they would do with him. I really don't. I don't. He's gonna probably like even though the Jags do need corner play, he's probably just gonna play mostly offense, and that's why I just don't. I just don't think this idea that he has that he's gonna play both sides consistently. I just don't think it's possible. I really don't think he's gonna be able to do it. I want him. I wish he could do it, just because we've never seen it before, obviously. But I don't. I don't think he's gonna. I think maybe they get him in a couple times on defense. Again, the thing about the NFL is always you got to be studying with your position group, whatever, and you're always in practice doing certain drills with your position groups in certain schemes, everything. And NFL playbooks way harder than college playbooks. That's not that's not anything to compare there. So for him to play both sides, I really don't think it's going to be possible for him. I just genuinely don't. Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, that's it. Oh yeah, yeah. That's the thing. Is like I in a perfect world he'd play corner, and you know be on offense a little bit because offense you don't have to like one of the most you know like one of the positions where it is most important that you are on your stuff about film, schemes, everything is corner. So you can't, go half and half, and then you're halfway through on corner, and you are getting because I mean, there's a reason why a corner will be one of the top corners in the league, and then next year they're not even close. Is because it that position itself is so volatile in the sense that if you're not continuously perfecting your craft and changing what you're doing, you are going to get burned, and that's just the simplicity of it. And so if he's not constantly doing stuff with the DB room, it's going to be hard on him. And so I think where it differs is if you are not constantly doing something with the wide receiver room, you can it's not that big of a deal. You can always come in and just make a play and that's that. But like corners, you have to be on your P's and Q's at all times. And so I just don't like the idea of him sprinkling in a little bit of corner. Um, that's why I thought maybe safety, but then again, like couldn't be a free safety because again, one of the free safeties have to know everything. They are again one of those people that has to be have a high football IQ. So, and I'm not saying Travis Hunter doesn't have a high football IQ. I'm just saying you need to be in the room a lot. And so that's what really is making me reluctant to think that he can do this. But we'll see. We'll see what he's capable of. You have any more thoughts about Hunter, or do you want to move on to Carter? So I'm glad the Giants didn't question this. I really am. I do you, and of course you are because you're a Commanders fan. So well, you think he's a better prospect than Kayvon Thibodeau was coming out of Oregon? Okay, I I don't know what's next for Thibodeau. I don't. I don't. I. Yeah. So a lot of these good teams actually do a lot of rotational stuff with other, with like not high end pass rushers, but like for the Eagles example, they'll have a great amount of guys, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that guy was there, and then he's making moves, like he's not. He's making an impact, and you're like, well, I didn't even know this guy's name because he just kind of came out of nowhere, and that the Giants could get away with doing a rotational three man rotation with Burns, Thibodeau, and Carter, and it could work. I just, again, long term, is he there? Right, he's not going to be there long term. But like someone mentioned this, the Giants, when they were really good and in Super Bowls, they had a very, yeah. List goes on and on. You can name them because they had them, and those guys weren't in for all snaps. They were, some of them were rotational guys, and that's just how it is. So Thibodeau, although he like he's fizzling out, like he can still have an impact here. I just, again, he's not going to be here long term. There's just no way after this, that is what it is with when you have a top 3 pick. You are picking BPA, which for some people, that's, if they don't know, that's best player available. You're picking there for a reason. Just pick the best player available, and and figure other things out later. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't. This is why I'm saying don't overthink it. That's why I was happy they didn't question it, because if they question it, they would have went somewhere else, and it just wouldn't. It would have been a reach. It would have been this. It would have been that. Like you're just happy, and you might not be, but you're just happy they didn't think otherwise, and they just went with the best player available. I mean, they were getting calls like hell to trade down, so for them not to do it is show some discipline, because I'm sure someone was offering a first round pick. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, and before we get into that pick, I do want to say that, like, here's the thing too, is like you you can also you can do some things with Carter off the ball, and then have Thibodeau and Brian Burns as your bookends, and then that works itself out. And I'm not saying obviously you keep him full time there, because obviously we saw when he made the transition over to edge how much of an impact that made versus him being an off ball linebacker. Um, it really paid dividends, and so with that being said, you want to keep him mainly as an edge, but you can do things with him off the ball. And I know Giants fans are like, oh, we got we got a lot of guys that I don't want to take snaps away from them, but again, like when you have a player like this, you can't you can't limit him. You have to let him just go out there and make plays. And when you limit him, you are limiting his development. And so he needs to, like, Micah McFadden, you can take snaps away from him. Like Bobby Okereke, like these guys, like you don't have to like keep these guys as the number one, number two inside linebackers that you know have to be on the field all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not Fred Warner. They're not. You know what I'm saying? Like that's they're not Demario Davis. Like yeah, like they don't have to be on the field the entire time. So I like the idea of Abdul Carter getting moved around as a versatile chess piece, and that makes it so Kayvon Thibodeau is not losing out on a bunch of snaps, and you can see if he is still worth it, because Brian Burns is the oldest one in that group. I don't know if he's their full long term decision, so we'll see where the Giants go from here. But that was a great. Thank God they did that pick because Giants are known to not do stuff like that. All right, Will Campbell. So, what are your thoughts on your LSU boy coming here and being the chalk pick for so long, and it ends up happening anyways, despite people thinking it wouldn't happen because of how chalk it was. No, because guys have done it before. Um, yeah, yep. Yeah, I see that. Like, I just I don't fully grasp what the. I mean, there's like other than the harm, like I really don't fully grasp what scouts, because a lot of scouts were saying that you know he's not gonna be an all pro or pro bowl tackle. But if you throw him a guard, that's when all of a sudden he's gonna be an all pro guard. All this, like they're giving him all this hype at that one position, but like you said, in the SEC, he played a premier position in left tackle and held his own. Now, did he did have games where he struggled against certain guys like Kyle Kennard. He struggled against Kyle Kennard, who's probably going to end up going around either late day 2 or early day 3. And he had some of his struggles against those bigger guys, and that is what it is. But that's kind of like when they watch that tape, that's kind of what might shock them. But again, Vrabel was very high on him, and he didn't think twice, especially when they went to go see him. I think it was his workout. I can't tell if it was his workout or I don't know if they went to his pro day, but I don't even know if he was at his pro day. But he said he's gonna be left tackle. He's gonna be now. They didn't say he would be the starting left tackle, but they said he's going to be listed as left tackle and play as such, and he's going to compete for it. So that gives me hope that Vrabel sees something that some of these scouts are not. So, like, this is very different from the Gray Zabel situation, who also has very short arms, and he got listed as a guard right away, and he only played tackle I believe he only played tackle at North Dakota. So, yeah, what makes you say, though, that Will Campbell is going to be generational and up there with Joe Alt in terms of this era? Yeah. No, he's very smart. He's like one of the most smarter prospects here. So definitely, so it just feels like the only knock on him has been like, so for example, his wingspan is in the 1 percentile. So, and arms being in the 14th percentile, hands in the 24th, and so that obviously, that's at first that's very scary. It's just like to think, like, I don't you think, oh my gosh, like there's no way he can play tackle at the next level because longer edge rushers can get into his frame before he's able to establish that position and get to that position, and that's just where they feel like that could be the problem. Because again, like I said, Kyle Kennard, who bigger, longer edge rusher, was able to kind of dismantle him because of that, and so one of my dogs is bothering me, but clawing on the door. But yeah, I really respect Campbell as a person, and he even wore the Kyron Lacey pin and commemorate him. Yeah. Yeah, it's it it just reminds you um to make smart sometimes just you got to make smart decisions, and it reminds you how much scrutiny and like these guys receive for all this, you know. I, yeah, and people don't the mental that you get from something like this. You sometimes we can't even fathom it because our names aren't in, our names aren't, we don't have big names, we're not like, it's not like we receive all this scrutiny, and so it's just like, sorry, my dog was clawing on my door like outstandingly, and so you know you just have to feel for everybody involved in this because that is not how they expected it to end, this story to end. And so for him to get to a point where he had to take his own life, it really is, it's just heartbreaking. And I just praying for the family and friends of Kyron Lacey at this time because that is very tough. Because again, um, I think Kyron Lacey's lawyer had come out and said that he, was this Kyron Lacey? I think it was Kyron Lacey's lawyer that came out and said, or attorney or whatever, said that he would have been fine. It's just all this backlash he received. It was worse than any um, trial or any jail time that he would have received from this event. So he just couldn't take it, and that's just, yeah. Yeah, I agree. And the unfortunate thing is our news cycles are always very negative and very at the very undermining of this person that you're talking about's mental and their mental health and what this will do by almost defaming them in a way in which you are talking about their reputation. And so it sucks to see, but I really respect Campbell for honoring and commemorating. But did you notice that the NFL did not do anything for him? Yeah. So it's sad, but uh, on that note, we move to the Browns, who had traded down, and they get Mason Graham, which, by the way, was the chalk pick here, but obviously they were flipped with Hunter going to Jacksonville instead of Cleveland, and Graham going to the Browns instead of Jacksonville. And how do you feel about them selecting D-line when it feels like they needed to go something that would be foundational considering where they're at? Or do you think this team is win now and they're just missing that quarterback piece? 12 years ago. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Miles Garrett, one of the most double teamed players in the league, obvious for obvious reasons. And so to have somebody that can take any attention off of him, considering Mason Graham is a he's not an elite tier pass rusher, but he can get it done. And so that's the thing about Mason Graham is he's a very more complete player. He was the most complete defensive tackle. Now, as a pass rusher, a higher ceiling obviously is Walter Nolan, and so you just know that you already have a sure thing in Mason Graham when you're drafting him. So I like this pick. I like the idea of this. I just understand where you could come from. Like, they needed to do something that would change, like something foundational, a piece that they can use. And maybe this thing, maybe this is it. But then again, like, is this what Miles Garrett stayed for? Or is this really just been the money talked and then that's it? Like, there was all this talk about, oh, he's staying because they're getting a quarterback that he likes, or he's staying because that's that's it. That's it. It has to be that at this point. That's funny. I just it's a defensive tackle here is fine, especially because it's Mason Graham. But it's not like, uh, yeah, that was see, and but the my thing about that, see, oh, McMillan, see, and the thing was NFL was high on McMillan. I was scared that he might drop because a lot of people had him dropping, and I was like, well, it depends on where the NFL is at with him, and they were very obviously they were high enough with him, but maybe not because I think the Tetsuo McMillan pick was more so because that was something the Panthers were willing to do because Bryce Young wanted that, and they knew that's what Bryce Young needed. So they were willing to kind of maybe, in their eyes, reach a little bit. But, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Saints take him there or teams following not too long after their pick. But I just think the thing with Genty here, though, is, again, he's not going to be your foundational piece. You just had a foundation. Now, if that's the case, you just had a foundational piece because Nick Chubb was already there. And, we saw what that did for them. Him having one of the best years for a running back in a while. And meanwhile, it did nothing for them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they won a playoff game against Steelers who never win playoff games, but sorry. Right. So like it didn't alter anything. So I just think with taking a running back here, I feel like if you're going to be a team that takes a running back this high, you have to already have things set. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to have like we are a couple pieces away from winning now. And I just don't think the Browns are in that boat. I think there's a lot of things they need to fix here, and quarterback being obviously the highest of them all in terms of what they need to figure out. So I just don't. When you don't have a quarterback, I think you need to go something more foundational, which can be a wide receiver, an offensive tackle, um, maybe even a corner. I just don't think a defensive tackle though
or an edge rusher. I just don't think of a defensive tackle as being that foundational piece. But I think what the Browns think is they can win now. And I think they can go to the playoffs with a Joe Flacco. Or, yeah. Right. The the person with more better chance to become an Aaron Donald would be Walter Nolan, which goes a whole 11 picks after. And here's Jency. So you said, Jen- yeah, okay. Well, here's the thing. He's a bounce guy. Yeah, he's a bounce off guy. He's like a Barry Sanders or an Emmett Smith, and so I get that. But some people were comparing him to, even before the Raiders connection, we're comparing him to Marshawn Lynch, and even before uh, Pete Carroll became the Raiders, and they were, and he was getting mocked here. But again, this to me is Pete Carroll's Marshawn Lynch, and so now, yeah, that's what I wrote down. Yeah, yeah, which is fair, and that's again, that's for a lot of guys. A lot of guys, you're just like, wow, can't see Mason Graham in a Browns jersey. I've been only envisioning him in a Jaguars jersey for so long, and so now it's like it's so hard to think like him being in a different jersey. But no, I think him and Bowers in offense just eases everything up for your quarterback. And so Geno Smith, a guy that performs better when he has tools like this, it's just gonna make him go back to where he was a year or two ago. So he gonna be able to he gonna be able to write his story here because this is a great situation for him to be in, and so it's on him now to make this team better. But the thing is Ashton Genty talked about coming in to a team and doing what Saquon did for the Eagles. But what we know about the Eagles is obviously their their O line. So I do wonder though if the Raiders O line can hold up for them, or hold up for him, or will they hinder his impact? What do you think? You mean which he did, by the way, in that Penn State game. What he didn't have anything flashy, but he had 5 yard runs that make you like, oh my gosh, like if only he had holes to go through. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not like people have to understand when the O line isn't making holes, you have to kind of make do with what you have, and that's the thing with certain backs when they're coming out. Some of them struggle with vision, and so if you don't have that vision at the next level, it could like versus college where you can kind of make do with what you have. When you're at the next level, if you don't have the vision, you are not going anywhere. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I get scared about for a guy like Marion Hampton. But Genty, that's not going to be the problem with him. So I think he'll get used to it. I just don't, I'm not thinking he's gonna have all those holes that he had, um, in the what's it called again? The Midwest or the I think the Midwest Conference, Mountain West, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the Yep. Which I think they can do. I definitely think um, they can make this work. Um, I don't remember. I didn't remember seeing who their offensive coordinator is, but I think they can do this. Um, Move a little quicker here. We're about at 40 minutes after the sixth pick. We're doing about about 8 minutes a pick here on average, but it's okay. We'll move a little quicker here. Armin Mambu, another chalk pick here for the Jets, and this shores up your line here. Um, what do you think of the pick? Right, and this is like the same thing as last year. You go Brock Bowers, the sexy pick, or you go Olu Fashanu and you eat your vegetables, right? And they ate their vegetables last year, and what did they do this year? They ate them again, and they could have went the sexy pick in Tyler Warren because that's again I know Colston Loveland went before Tyler Warren, and we will talk about that, but at the same time, Warren would have been a better fit here for the Jets, and they could have easily done something like that, but they said, hey, we lost Morgan Moses. We are not letting Carter Warren start for or Chuka Korafor. We're not letting them start. So now they have short up guards, which they always had. Joe Tippmann, you know, he had a promising rookie year, but not as wasn't on the up last year, but things can change. And now Fashanu, your crazy pass protector, who is a left tackle at heart, and your Arma Membu, who's played mostly right tackle in college, and now he gets to play it here and uses athleticism in both the passing and running game. So, man, this is definitely for Fields, man. This is to see if Fields is worth it. There's no excuses now. There is no excuses for him, other than they don't really have a receiving core that is formidable at all. but and it's the Jets, and but like there is no like because here's the thing. Here's the thing about Fields. What do we know about Fields is when the O line is not there, he's gonna crumble. So this for him is gonna be good. So he can actually. The thing is, they gotta do more quicker stuff, for him, and that's my if you have him sitting in the pocket, you are already failing him. So I just need the Jets to understand that, or Jets fans to understand that this is a more of a 1 year deal. This is to see what I know it's 2 years, 40 million, but this is to see what he can do, and that's it. So, but at the end of the day, if he's not your quarterback, you still have your bookend tackles. Like that is set if this works out. So, and when Jets have a good O line, things look brighter. So this is good to see. All right, Panthers. So this Bryce Young pick, this pick for Bryce Young is actually really good. I just again, the defense side of things is where everybody was very hesitant to like this pick because the thought was they would take somewhere on defense.
I love defense. I'm a defensive-minded person, but with that offense, I really think they're gonna put up 30 points a game, like 27, 30 points a game. That offense is gonna be so fun. Like with I'm like with Leggett and McMillan on
Yep.
the outside. They're both big bodies, but Leggett's so fast. It's gonna be insane.
Yeah, and so they get Rico Dowdle from the Cowboys, which I don't know how much of an impact he's going to make, but Chuba got shirt up with his extension. Um, Adam Thielen's still there. They like Jalen Coker. Uh, Obviously, tight end still somewhat of a need, but they I think they can make an impact here, and they were showing they could towards the end of the year, and if they can continue what they were doing towards the end of the year, plus Ted McMillan, I think they can actually make stuff shake, and get things done here. It's just, again, their defense still is not in a great shape. I know they made some signings like Trevor Moreg or Tershawn Wharton. It's still very poor. So we will have to see what else they draft here. But it does scare me about their defense, because this, again, people are like, this is like, if they get better, this can be like the Bengals, where it's just like, okay, well, you're scoring all these points, but for what? But for what? Saints, Kelvin Banks. Trevor Penning they did not pick up his 5th-year option. This is the Trevor Penning failure of a project in Trevor Penning. This is the Trevor Penning replacement. Talise Fuaga is going to go play on the left side to replace Ryan Ramczyk, who recently retired. And obviously Banks takes that Penning spot. So with this being said, is this Spencer Rattler season? Oh, so
On a real note, I think I think that they should take Milrow if he falls to him in the second round, and
okay.
let Milrow figure it out after that. Figure it out offensive line. Alvin Kamara's still there. If anything with Alvin Kamara, there's a chance to win the football game. I don't
Dude,
care how old he is. He can be 90. He scored 6 freaking touchdowns from Christmas.
I'll never forget that game. I was watching it live. Oh,
Like, I quick little story. That Kamara got drafted. I was pissed because Washington had picked picks late with Perine at that because I wanted Kamara. I've always been a Alvin Kamara hype train.
and that is Josh and Genty's comparison. So, or is one of his other comparisons, and so, like, to see now where Genty now goes and what Kamara is still doing, if that can be where Genty ends up in, as his future, be very good for the Raiders. And so that's kind of why I had the Saints drafting Genty, because I thought, maybe Kamara is on a short leash there in New Orleans, but he is probably going to retire a Saint, which is awesome to see. So by the way, and then this Kelvin Banks signing now, this is now going to help out Kamara and their Kellen Moore and the new staff that they have. So I like this pick for him, considering Kellen Moore comes from the Eagles, who had, Mailata and Lane Johnson. So now that he gets to work with 2 young tackles, similar to where the Jets are at, and work with it. So I know, like, a lot of these fans are like, oh, can we stop taking tackle? I hate this, but man, like I said, you gotta eat your vegetables at some point, and so that's what these teams are doing, and it's awesome to see them. I just, again, like you said, they need to take a quarterback here in the next couple rounds. They have to do that, and I really do believe at some point there will be a run of quarterbacks. A Tyler Shuck, a Jalen Moreau, a Dylan Gabriel, a Will Howard, Kyle McCord. Like, these guys will go off the board faster than you think. And it is because as soon as a couple of those guys go off the board, it's a huge drop off. And I really do believe some of those guys can start in the NFL, actually. There is obviously a few problems with their games. Like, Jalen Moreau his decision making is very, very poor. So, not to take a shot at him specifically, but that's one of the examples. Like, decision making is huge, and that's why he drops out of like the first, second round, because he is athletically gifted. He is the most athletically gifted out of anybody in this draft. No questions asked. But there's a lot of question marks about all these quarterbacks that did not go in the first round. Bears, Colson Loveland over Warren. Was that surprising to you?
Yes, let's just make this quick. My only thing is why. From college football. I don't know.
This is Ben Johnson's Sam Laporta. I'll give you that.
Okay.
If that gives you any idea of why they would do something like this. So Ryan Poles, he drafts. He is like so you know the RAS score, right? So he is the one that drafts more towards that. I don't know if it's a coincidence or not. You never know. But he drafts the more athletic guys. That's just his whole thing. And so Colson Loveland, undeniably, is a more athletic. And you know, I can't say undeniably, because Tyler Warren he's done some very athletic things that you wouldn't expect out of a big body like him. But Colson Loveland, more of an athlete, and so I think this was definitely a fit more than anything. And I actually have a story to tell you a little quick. I was watching a show, and they were talking about you know, they didn't know what the hell the Saints were going to do with that pick, but they're like, well, maybe they go tackle here, and which was not something that people were thinking before, but this was something that was just at the end, and Kelvin Banks was a guy rising, and so they were like, Kelvin Banks, and I was like, yes, this makes so much sense. And then Tyler Warren was already off the board for them in their predictive mock draft, and so they go, well, the Bears could definitely go Colson Loveland here. There's a chance they love him more than they do love Warren, and the fact that they get him instead of Warren is probably better for them. There's people like I think, was it Dane Brugler? I can't remember, but there was people that had Colson Loveland over Tyler Warren. So I was like, okay, bet, like that's a good pick. So I'm like, you know what? These guys like plus 300, like I could make some money off of these guys. I was like, I'm a bet. So I went up to North Carolina, right, to the bank. That's where my bank is. I live in South Carolina, but my bank is in North Carolina because I'm right near the border. And that's the only way I can bet, because South Carolina is not a betting state and North Carolina is. So I have to. So when I go to the bank, it's like, all right, well, I just deposit some money, but I gotta bet. And so I forgot to do it. And guess what? Kelvin Banks to the Saints, Colson Loveland to the Bears. Would have won $150. That stings, because. And then I told the show later, like, that I didn't do it, and they're like, you should have listened. They're like, you should listen. You should have listened to us, because we got the props here on the show. But nah, I really do like this pick for them, and I get why fans are a little, have some question marks above their heads, because Warren was obviously considered to be the consensus best tight end in the draft. But again, Bills went Dalton Kincaid over Michael Mayer, and we saw what that means, because Michael Mayer is not even going to be a Raider anymore. He is probably going to be traded before the season starts. So it's at a certain point, it can be just flavor and fit. So Micah Williams here to The 49ers.
pretty hard.
Let's go quick. Let's go quick as hell. Michael Williams. And again, as we go further down, I'm not going to have as much on them anyways. Not the D line. They needed to go D line here, so I'm happy they did that and didn't go corner. So, this is going to be a project player. Obviously, this is your Trayvon Walker. He's dealing with an ankle injury, but again, he is in John Lynch's words, he's the best run edge, like run stopping edge they have, and to compare that up with Nick Bosa would be amazing. What's your thoughts on this? Because
I really want the Bush brothers to.
we all did.
So, I see this as just, in my brain, replacing Joe.
Yeah, I this is definitely, the 49ers, I don't know where they're at. They're kind of in purgatory. They lost so much this offseason. So I hope they kind of figure it out, and hopefully they can develop Michael, because this is a developing piece that you need to ensure that his process goes swimmingly, because if not, he will not develop right. They apparently wanted him so bad they were calling to trade up. And meanwhile, I thought 11 was a little rich for me, but again, the NFL really likes Michael Williams. So again, because he's like that Trayvon Walker, and we saw what happened with Trayvon Walker when he went over Aiden Hudson. But I digress. Tyler Booker. And speaking of reaches, here's your reach that I had a lot of people tell me was not a reach, but then when I went to go look, a lot of scouts, analysts, whatever, were saying this was a reach. Even guys that liked Tyler Booker.
I have really no thoughts on it, other than I hope he sucks. I don't hope he sucks. I hope he doesn't play well for the Cowboys. If he goes somewhere else, it's great.
How about the 3 Tylers? Thoughts on that? Yeah, it's almost like Jerry Jones is doing it for fun at this point. I think the idea is that he's the Zach Martin replacement, and that's the storyline. And he's always searching for storylines. So, again, he could have went something way more impactful here. Again, a guard at 12 is very rich for me, let alone, I don't think Tyler Booker is the best guard prospect we've had in X amount of years. So, I'm not saying like he's not the best guard in this draft, but again, when you stack it up against other drafts, and again, that's the thing, this draft is very different. This is a weaker draft in general, so if you want to take a guard 12, fine, whatever. I just think this is somewhat of a reach. And the NFL was always higher on him than any of the scouting community was. I know Daniel Jeremiah was very high on him. So, and I think him being high on him was because the NFL was high on him, if that makes any sense. Because he gets, he hears things. So, again, he has much versatility for this line. So, and they needed that last year because they had so many guys playing different spots. So, he can play both sides, left guard, right guard. So, very good for them. Kenneth Grant to the Dolphins. Again, this is your Chris Jane, or not. This is your. Did I say? Wait. No, is it? No, Christian Wilkins. Oh my gosh, why did I have Chris Jenkins written down? Holy crap! This is your Christian Wilkins. I know he's been gone for a year, but this is his replacement. This is your run stopper. He's probably the best run stopper in terms of defensive tackle in this draft. So for them to go personal fit, yep.
I don't like taking players from the first round because one of them is always not going to pan out. Like same position, same people. Like Iowa with the tight end, Hawkinson and what the heck's his name?
Laporta.
Noah Fant.
Oh, okay.
Those two got drafted in the same draft class. If they weren't both the first round, it's the first, second round. I don't think it worked out.
Oh, you're saying so like Mason Graham and Ken. Okay, I see what you mean. That is a very interesting topic to talk about. I don't know, like, the thing is both of them have both different flavors, and that's why they were playing together, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, they both had different, like, Kenneth Grant is more of your run stopper and your run stuffer. Like, he's gonna be that brick wall for you, and teams can't just now run all over the Dolphins like they used to. And so this was definitely a pick they need to make. But yeah, I see where you're coming from, where you're just like, why would you draft the the two, or like the low end of the other one? You know what I'm saying? The one with the lesser of a ceiling in the same round. You know, I get what you're saying there, but Kenneth Grant is more of their fit and more of their flavor than a Mason Graham might have been, if that makes any more sense to you. See, like, that's kind of where it makes, but again, like you said, just because it's fit, you know, it doesn't mean they're gonna work out, right? So it could always fizzle out where, you know, Mason Graham is the better, it ends up being the one that works out, and he does not. Tyler Warren here to the Colts, which was the most chalk pick of the draft. This was inevitably going to happen. He has to, right? At this point, he can't wear 80s. No way. Dallas Clark, and guess what? He's the Jack Doyle. You know, this is Jack Doyle 2.0. For either Richardson or Daniel Jones. Who do you think's throwing passes to him? Okay. Oh, okay. So you think he was victim of the system as well? Yeah, because, I mean, like, think about it. Like, I don't know. I mean, Daboll's very smart. Oh my gosh. It's so funny. I don't it's so weird with some of these teams, like your Panthers or your Browns or Giants or all these teams, Jets, like, it's like, no matter what they do, like, they're just from the top, they're just cursed, or from the top they just suck. So it's like they can't do anything, even if they have offensive minded coaches and a lot of pieces on their team. That just feel like they can't get anywhere. But we go into Jalen Walker to the Falcons, who take their first Georgia player in 50 years, and this is in the first or second round. First Georgia player in the first and second round in 50 years. Which is kind of crazy to think about, considering a lot of teams draft in-state more than you think. So for them to not do that in the first or second round in 50 years, like 1966 is the last time they drafted a Georgia guy in this early. It's also the first edge they've taken since Takaris McKinley in 2017, so in the first round. Yeah, I will get into that. Just a little. I thought he was going to go earlier than this, maybe to the Panthers, just because the NFL is most definitely higher on him. And so for him to drop down to 16, this is actually where my hot spot would have been for him. So I'm glad this is where he went, because again, you know, there's some project-esque things that come with this type of player. But again, I think he had some of the most juice out of any defensive player, and that's why I kind of liked him in Panthers, because I felt like the Panthers needed somebody with juice. You know, that's what they needed out of a prospect, and so I thought if they were going to take defense, they had to go Jalen Walker, and they ended up going on offense. So he'll play defensive end for them probably. I know they do have some outside linebackers, but I think he'll play defensive end for them. I genuinely do. But again, he can play inside linebacker for you. There's a lot of these guys where they can, like Jihad Campbell too, like Abdul Carter. They can play one very well, but they also can do the other one for you if you need it. Did you, before you have any thoughts on this pick before I give it to the next? Okay. Walter Nolan, which now they they took Darius Robinson. Was it last year? I believe it was last year. Can't remember. Last year or the year before. So they got Darius Robinson, who they are still high on. They still believe he can become what they drafted him to be. But it is a combo with a very, like, if you're to put it on like a bar and, Walter Nolan, you'd have pass rush all the way to the left and his run, like, and if you have pass rush to the left and run to the right, Walter Nolan's bar would be all the way to the left, mostly to the left, not all the way, but mostly to the left, and then Darius Robinson would be mostly to the right. So to get that pairing for their D-line, and they just signed a bunch of players on the edge for them, that is good. They have always had a subpar defensive line. So now I think this is probably where their D-line's been the best in years, and he can learn now from Calais Campbell. So that is obviously a plus if he can learn from somebody that has been in the league since dinosaurs were roaming the freaking earth. I mean, come on. I think he's an 08 draft prospect, which is just insane to think. That's insane to think about. I know, and I was just like think about like Gerald McCoy was drafted after Calais Campbell. Like, come on, man. Like, and he's been out of the league for how many years, and he was really good for a while. So like, I don't get it, man. But keep going, Calais, and it's awesome. This is where Calais was drafted, was he not? He was drafted in Arizona, so. Oh my gosh. The Super Bowl that we won. I mean, like, come on, man. Like, that's insane. I was literally in first grade when this man got drafted, and I am out of college. Like, okay, all right. Shamar Stewart to the Bengals. Okay, I'm gonna go real quick then. Shamar Stewart, very athletic traits. He's gonna be opposite of Trey if he stays. So, Miles Murphy all over again though. Do we think this could be a Miles Murphy thing where they take a guy that has rare athletic traits but just can't put anything together? I mean, he was not a productive guy in college, so that's what scares me. I think Murphy's likely gone here, obviously after this pick, but what say you, Shamar Stewart? Anything? Got nothing. Okay. Right. So, okay, well, bang. Okay, well, then, you got anything to say about the Trey Hendrickson situation? Okay. I do too. I hope they figure that out. I just don't know if they will. And that's why they take this pick, in case they cannot pull it off. Gray Zabel, finally, Seahawks take an interior offensive line. He is listed, like I said earlier, he's listed as a guard off the bat. Arms too short to stay at a tackle. I wonder, will they put him at center? Probably he can play anywhere on the line, so I think they will put him wherever they need to put him, and he's kind of your Graham Barton of this draft. So I'm glad the Seahawks went through and did it. You just stop me if you have anything to say about any of these guys, honestly, at this point. Agbuka, this was... Okay, that was an instant stop, which I don't blame you. My first note is the first real shocker of the draft, because this really... Who is Agbuka? Who literally is Agbuka, but yep. Couple years. Yeah. Yes. I wrote down not an Evans replacement. Similar receiver to Godwin, who just got signed, and McMillan. I guess he didn't show enough to them to warrant being their wide receiver 3. I just don't. I don't know. And it's not like Liam Cohen came back. Like, I think if Liam Cohen comes back, they don't do this. But again, this is a new coordinator, new everything. So, I mean, not new head coach, obviously, which Canales, he's an offensive guy. So I understand that. But, like, I guess, Liam Cohen was more of a McMillan guy than anybody because he probably would have fought for McMillan versus drafting a wide receiver here. But again, I think the problem is their defense. They needed to draft someone. This is like the Panthers thing. They needed to draft someone defensively, and this is the whole problem with the NFC South in general. These guys, their defenses are just holding it back, and their teams are just not wanting to draft defense because they think they need to get something offensively to put more points on the board. Like, no, you need some juice on the defensive side. So this shocked me. I don't question Buka's talents. I had him as wide receiver too. No bias. I think he's the most polished wide receiver in this draft. I think more polished than Ted, genuinely. But now we got Jahdae Barron to the Broncos. Also shocking, but again, it's Sean Payton. So don't kid ourselves here. Well, again, I don't know how much influence Sean Payton not on this pick. Obviously, he's an offensive guy. This is a defensive pick, but this defense really is studying out for the Denver Broncos. I really love their defense now. And I think I had something funny to think about. It's just like as soon as they got 70 points dropped on them, they knew they had to do something about it because Hufanga from the 49ers, Dre Greenlaw from the 49ers both got them. Their D-line played way above their belt last year. So I don't know if they do that again. I don't know if they repeat that, but the linebackers, I mean, they're not anything amazing, but they were very solid for them. White boy Riley Moss, white boys up, played very good across from Patrick Surtain, and now they get their starting nickel cornerback, and I really love that for them. So I really like their defense, and as much as I would love them drop the offensive player, they get their nickel. Marion Hampton to the Chargers. Another running back who struggles with vision. Oh, you know why? Because I was like, I don't need to write anything down for this. This is my Steelers. Why would I need to write something down? So I didn't even list his name on my notes. Okay, Derek Harmon. So I had people texting me like, okay, are they taking Shedeur or Jackson Dart? They're both on the board. It's like, neither. They're not taking either. And so I said, and I told a couple people, like, I want Derek Harmon here. And they're like, what? What? Excuse me? Like, who the hell is that? Who even the hell is Derek Harmon? And I'm like, well, this is a defensive lineman that has it all. I really do believe, like, he's not Kenneth Grant necessarily, but he is more closer than Kenneth Grant than a Walter Nolan did I say Kenneth Grant? Sorry, he's not Mason Graham. He's not a Mason Graham, but I think he's closer to a Mason Graham than Kenneth Grant or a Walter Nolan. He has more of everything that you want in a defensive tackle than those two guys do have. So I'm glad we got him because this will be our Cam Hayward replacement. And he has some things that a Keanu Benton doesn't. So I'm glad that is where we're going with this. I'm so happy we took the smart pick. And again, like I said, the vegetable pick, whatever you want to call it, instead of taking a quarterback that does not fit in a system that we run. And I'm so happy that's the case because we could have been like, Shedeur's on the board because but again, I don't think they had a first round grade on him. I really don't. Again, if you're not taking Shedeur at the top, you're not taking him at the bottom because you don't have a first round grade on him. If that makes any sense to you at all. Right, you can take like Cam Ward. Not a lot of people have first round grades on him, but again, he's the best quarterback in the draft consensus, and Titans want a quarterback, and so I think the Giants didn't like that flavor, and again, we obviously saw the Giants don't like the flavor because we see what they take later, right? They didn't like Shedeur's. They would have went Shedeur. They had 2 times to draft him, and they didn't do it. So obviously they like different flavor. So that's what this is about, and I'm so happy they win. And again, I have other Steelers fans that are not happy about this pick, and I just say why. And I think it's because they wanted juice. They wanted at a skill position. That's and we still have a quarterback looming. And I think that's what people are really more pissed about, the fact that we are letting Aaron Rodgers toy with us, or we are limiting ourselves to a quarterback in the third round, second round, whatever. Well, we don't have a second round pick, but limiting ourselves here. I know you're a Pittsburgh guy, so like, you got any thoughts on that pick? Well, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. You went to college. Yeah. It's just the right. So okay. So Marion Hampton again. This is a running back I love. I really would have been fine with the Steelers taking him, but again, this is like the thing where it's like he struggles with vision. You know who also struggles with vision? Najee Harris, who they just signed. So, but this is your real football guy. This is the guy that I think Harbaugh felt definitely like one of the guys that he fell in love with. So I'm happy. Like again, he was drawing comparisons to Derrick Henry, which is with the other Harbaugh. So he definitely has real respect for Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry is a real football guy, and we know that. So to see a real football guy get in his hands, and as much as we would have loved to see Colson Loveland go to the Chargers, who went 12 picks earlier, this is a real first round talent that they didn't have to reach on, and he fits pretty well here. Again, the whole thing surprised me with J.K. Dobbins not coming back. But again, they get their style of running back, and they can now hopefully run on the Chiefs. And so, but yeah, I do like the pick. I just, again, they're running backs struggle with vision. That's my only concern there. They're really good. I mean, they're really good running backs. They have lots of talent. But Golden, finally drafted wide receiver. First wide receiver since Javon Walker, FSU's 2002, when I was born. Gutekunst did what best was for the fans in the draft here that were in Green Bay. Right? If you have the yeah, and they did it when their draft was in their city. Like that to me is perfect, and people are excited, and you get to hear the "Go Pack Go" chants, and that's I know you don't have the best, like you're not like you don't like Packers, right? And like I understand that, but like I mean, how awesome was it to see the "Go Pack Go" chants? I mean, like, come on, like that's like for any NFL fan, that was awesome to see. So, again, this guy, out of what was left, he has the most wide receiver one potential. So, and here's the thing: is Chris Watson's already a free agent. I know he is on contract with them for this last year, but he is not playing. So. He is already a free agent if you really think about it. And Dobbs, again, I love Romeo Dobbs, but I think they're not interested in him. I think there's a few off the field, like not in terms of like what he does off the field, but I'm talking like in the room, like on the field, but not in the game. You know what I'm saying? Like off the field problems where it's practice or whatever, like him like little ego like thing. Like I think. And I like Romeo Dobbs, but like, again, I think it's like they're kind of sick of him. I really kind of, and I think they're kind of sick of Wicks too. But I think they can develop him. He's younger than a Romeo Dobbs. He's less injury prone than a Romeo Dobbs. Romeo Dobbs, I don't know if he's gonna be playing football long term. So I think Reed can be your solid wide receiver too, Jaden Reed, and you can try and develop Wicks and Golden here. And I think it looks better than it has. And I really thought Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs would be long term for him, but that's just not where we're at. Vikings with Donovan Jackson. This is a pick where a lot of people are gonna. Yeah, I agree, and that's where their problems were. It wasn't tackles. Their tackles were fine. Obviously, there's some injuries, and I do like that Donovan Jackson, they picked a guy who played tackle for Ohio State when Josh Simmons went down, who goes a couple picks after him. And I'm glad they did something like that. So, if they have injuries again, they can have a little versatility to it. I don't get why. Here's my theory. I think the Falcons were definitely calling the Vikings as well. To get James Spears, by the way. I don't know if they would have, if they offered them a first round pick, but if they did, why did you not take that first round pick? Like, I get, like, you love Donovan Jackson, but why did you not take that first round pick if it was offered to you? You know what I'm saying? Because that's what the Texans got from the Falcons for the Falcons drafting up. They got a late first round. But I don't know. Maybe they didn't get that pick. Maybe they only got calls from the Giants. But again, the Vikings need to trade back. They have the least trade comp in the entire draft. But again, like, in a weaker draft like this, maybe you don't want to trade back. Maybe you just want to take the 4 best guys you can find out of this draft and just move on and wait till the next draft. But, like, because they're not win now. They have basically a rookie quarterback. So, Dart. Yeah, this one you can talk a little bit more.
I love Jackson Dart.
And so does Dable.
If your name is Jackson Dart,
He throws darts, man.
I watched a few Ole Miss games and he impressed me every single time. I was legitimately scared watching the LSU Ole Miss game every time he had the ball. Every time he had the ball, I was like,
See, and that's the fear factor is important because if your quarterback doesn't have the X factor, then what's the point, right? And, like, I think he's a very Jalen Hurtsy. I think that's kind of what's his comp.
this is going to sound stupid, but I think he's a little less mobile than Jaden Daniels. Like, he's still super mobile, but he's less mobile. But he's sneaky athletic.
Oh, he is. He is very athletic. He's more athletic than Shedeur Sanders, so.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he will be the best quarterback at the end of all their careers.
And he won't have to start right away either.
Exactly.
But we won't be surprised if he's literally playing for Dable and Joe Shane's job in Thanksgiving. Yeah, like by Thanksgiving. But no shade to Russell Wilson, but his time's almost up.
James Pierce Jr., second edge rusher for the Falcons.
Yeah.
You take your number 1 and number 2 options at that position, and then one of them has to work out.
Yeah, I like double dipping here, but I don't know if I like double dipping the first round, especially giving up a first round next year. But this has always been so. Ryan Pace was from the Bears. He now comes to the Falcons, and Ryan Pace was the GM before Ryan Poles, and so he loves trading up late first rounders. He traded late first rounder to trade up for. If you think about the Bears first round, who did they trade up for? Justin Fields. So, like, he'll trade up late first rounds. He don't care. Like, he will trade those first rounds like they're candy, bro. And so they, like, I guess, they think they're Super Bowl bound with a second-year quarterback. That's what I think. I mean, like, why else would you do this? Well, I mean, I know Penix is no Burrow, but, I guess they think he is kind of like, it has the potential to take them that far. Which, again, this is like the Jordan Love thing again. Like, he showed you a little bit for a little bit, but, like, is it? Yeah, right. So, like, I mean, like, you're going into next year thinking that he's just going to immediately do that. So, like, because they got a little, aggressive, and maybe I just think they gave up way too much. Because literally, what's funny is the Giants traded up for a quarterback right in front of them, and did not have to give up as much. And we know when you trade up for a quarterback, the price is way more hefty. So, Starks, best defensive fit for the Ravens. I bet best defensive fit in the entire draft, I think. And he's going to replace Darius Washington very much so. I think when people ask why are they drafting another strong safety, because I think Kyle Hamilton, in my eyes, is a strong safety. I know he plays free safety, but I think he's more of a strong safety. Because he plays. I mean, they put him everywhere, dude. They literally put him everywhere. He is everywhere on the fucking field. He is a chess piece, and so like I think he's really good in the box, and that's where I would have him. But guess who's also really good in the box? Starks. So I think this is the thing, though, with Harbaugh and Zach Orr. I think they really have an understanding of this is positionless football. Because Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks are very smart players. So they have a great football instinct. So you can kind of do that with these guys. So that's why I'm like, that's why I like it. It is funny that Eric DeCosta came out and said, like, we didn't really mess with this, like, the marriage of people, like, putting Starks with us, like, matching Starks with us. But you know what? We started thinking about it, and it really, like, that's what we wanted to do. So that's what, and he was there for him, so they took him. So, hey, you have any thoughts on that pick?
I don't.
All right, Tyleik Williams, who probably was the one guy where if, like, every year you have one guy and you're like, I like him, but I can see why, like, I didn't think he'd go in the first. You know what I'm saying? Like, and this guy is a very fit guy. Like, because this, not in terms of, he's not fit. Because this is right. It's very Detroit Lion-esque, and they get their like, it's funny because he was compared to DJ Reader. And they have DJ Reader. So they literally are setting up a brick wall in the A and B gap. I mean, come on. This is a literal brick wall. And so, I mean, obviously they're not going to be on the field as much together. But, like, because they're both going to play nose. So, and both, like, one tech, everything like that. But you might as well try and run through the brick wall in Ford Field. At that point, like, and like a lot of teams ran on Detroit at the end when their defense was kind of suffering. So Josh Connerly, here it is. Here's your pick. Okay. So, you know what's funny is our lads last night had him in front of Brandon Coleman and had Brandon Coleman at left tackle. Do you think they stick with Brandon Coleman at right? What do you think? Really? Okay. There's a lot that I know somebody that had him as their number one tackle, actually. I think he's got the Kingsbury, yeah. I agree. I just don't know if he's gonna start right away. I think there's a few things like his play strength needs to increase, and so with a guy like when your play strength needs to increase, that's someone you kind of have to wait on anyways. So I mean, again. This is more so going to be like something where like Brandon Coleman's probably going to start. But, if someone goes down, he is right there and he is ready for you. There was a Commanders fan in at the bar, and they were they were not happy with the pick because they thought they were going to go defense, specifically edge. I don't know if you have any thought. Yeah. There's a bunch of edge rushers that the Commanders can take in the second round, which is very nice for you guys. I just, Connerly is a solid pass protector. He's one of the more solid guys in this draft, but he definitely had some play strength issues, especially at the Senior Bowl. So, and that was like one of his knocks on him coming out. This is another one where I was like, he shouldn't win the first round, but he did. Maxwell Harrison to the Bills.
My favorite part of the entire draft yesterday was watching Harrison congratulate every single player.
I did not see that. I did not catch that at all. Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me? Oh no. And that's the thing. I don't question his character at all. Not at all.
He is Buffalo Bill. That's just what he does.
That is something. That is a Buffalo thing. So I like the guy. I don't know if I like the player. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like the guy. I don't like. Yeah, right. So again, and this is a lot of people are gonna say that I shouldn't do this here, but I'm going to do it. This is almost like the Emmanuel Forbes pick.
Don't ever disrespect him like that.
Here's the thing, dude. I'm just gonna put it out for you. Speed wins in the NFL. That's why he goes in the first round. That's why Xavier Worthy won the first. I know Xavier Worthy proved me wrong, and I'm so happy he did. But Xavier Worthy, he only went in the first round because of speed. I'm gonna be honest with you. It keeps going, okay, and that's what it is. Speed wins the NFL. It is what it is. I'm not gonna question it. It's just Maxwell Harrison's not going the first round if he doesn't run a 4.20 or under a sub 4.30, right? You know, that's not always. It was always the pick for them, and I know it's like weird to say that considering I said he shouldn't win the first round, but I am trepidatious about how this player is going to work in the NFL because his tackling needs to improve tremendously. He just doesn't have the play strength. He's a slender guy, so I don't know if this is gonna be sufficient for the NFL level. But however, he is a ball hawk again, and that's why I brought up Emmanuel Forbes, because Emmanuel Forbes was a ball hawk. He had the most interceptions in college football coming out. This is why I'm scared, because he has weak physicals, but he is athletically gifted. Right, he is an athletically gifted guy. He scored crazy on everything in athletics, but he has weak physicals across the board. He's very, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's very up on one and very low on the other. So if you were to split it in athleticism and physicals, athletics 99%, physicals 1%. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where he's at. So but he's great in zone, and that's what Bills only fucking play. So, he's gonna work. He's gonna work in their odd defense. So fit, yes. Would I pick him in the first round? No, and that's what sucks. But I'm glad you told me about him shaking everybody's hands, because that really provides me with a greater perspective of how great of a human being he is. Next, on to the Eagles. They trade up to make sure nobody trades up for Jahad Campbell, which is odd because they don't select linebackers. Every time we mock them to them, they do not select linebackers. Very change of heart for everybody in this draft. The Packers drafted wide receiver, the Falcons drafted edge, and Eagles drafted linebackers. Times have definitely changed here, but he is definitely the best linebacker, let alone the best coverage linebacker in the draft, hands down. So, and again, like I said, you can play him anywhere. You want to play him on the edge, go for it. So, that's what's nice, and Nakobe Dean is going to miss time. Most certainly going to miss time. So, you get a very active player who is also super explosive to go and play either linebacker and they did lose edges. So, like, you can do it all for them, and that shoulder thing's why he dropped and was going to drop out of the first round if they didn't do this. So I don't know if he plays right away, obviously, but he's definitely going to be, him and Nakobe Dean are going to be fun to watch when they're both healthy and both ready to play. And obviously, Zach Bond. Of course you do, Mr. Commander's guy. That's the only reason you hate it. Yes. So I love this because, and I was saying this, and I was vying for this all the way, because he can sit behind Jalen Moore while his knee is healing. But again, the thing with Josh Simmons is will his knee heal to where he's at, because he's a very quick-footed guy. a quick-footed tackle, and that's what made him better than any like most of the tackles in this draft, where he's gifted with his movement to where he can he can get outside and fast if he needs to, or he can sit inside and be positioned properly. And that's what I really liked with him. And it just sucks. I don't know with his patellar if it's going to heal the way he wants it to. But again, a lot of these guys, they're heal. Like medicine, sports medicine is as best as it's been ever. So we'll see if that works. I think if he does come back and Jalen Moore is still playing, he can always come in for Jawan Taylor if he gets benched for committing false starts every fucking play. So like he can get sprinkled in, and I just really love this, especially I'm an Ohio State guy. So and I just sucked. A quick story is like he was the one Ohio State guy to follow me back because I followed the entire team, and when he got injured, he unfollowed everything NFL, blacked out his profile because he was like, I'm not gonna go high in the draft anymore. And to see him still get picked in the first round made my fucking day. So I'm happy to see that he's going to a position where he can kind of sit and wait for a year. All right. Is there any concluding thoughts on that, or you think we summed it up pretty well? All right. I'm just gonna put this out. I think Shedeur. I think the Rams are going to select Shedeur with their trade back pick that they got from yesterday, and I think there's going to be a couple receiver runs, running back runs. I told you about the edges. There's a lot of edges going to go off the board here on day 2. Who do you think Steelers' next quarterback is, if you're to put it out there? Yeah, Milroe almost came in your mouth right away. You think they ride with Rudolph? Wow, that was not what I was expecting to come out of your mouth. Yeah, I think this Aaron Rodgers saga has been... Yeah, so they can get a better pick next year. Again, like, this Aaron Rodgers saga has just been way overblown, and I just don't know what their whole mantra here is. I don't know, and for them to wait this long for Aaron Rodgers to kind of pigeonhole them in this situation, I don't understand it. But I think what I think they should do, and I know it's gonna sound against what you just said, but Aaron Rodgers, like, just bring him on if you can, and like at this point, don't expect it to happen, and just roll with Mason Rudolph and either a selection of Will Howard or Jalen Milroe. I would kind of also be cool with Dylan Gabriel. He's on my... If we're making a short list of the guys we just named, he's 4 for me. But I guess, like, Kyle McCord, just like his time at Ohio State is a sour mouth in my it's a sour taste in my mouth, man. I can't. I really appreciate what he did at Syracuse, but at the same time, man, like, ACC is different than Big Ten, and I don't see him doing that at the end. I don't. I know Colin Cowherd's very high on him, but that's Colin Cowherd. I think Jalen Milroe gives you more of what we've been wanting, or like something different. You know what I'm saying? Like more of an athletic quarterback than a pocket guy. You know, where we've always had Ben and Kenny Pickett and Russell Wilson. Like, that's more of your pocket passers. And now, like, it gives you a different taste. Like, we have Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow in the division. Like, we need something different, like something different from what we've been always doing. So, and again, I would love this where Jalen Milroe or Will Howard gets to sit behind Aaron Rodgers for a year. That would be nice. But again, it might be something where we have to go with Rudolph, and if Rudolph plays like trash or gets beat out in camp by one of the rookies, then so be it. And if we're 7-10 or 6-11, you know, we got a better pick for next year, and maybe quarterback is the play there. But we'll have to see. This was fun. This was real fun, and I know you got somewhere to be. So you got work in probably like 30 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm gonna let you get to that. I'm just gonna close it out here. Appreciate anybody who's stuck and listened to us in this 1 hour and 40 minutes. I actually thought that's what we were at, but 1 hour, 40 minute span. I really appreciate anybody that stuck with us, and hopefully we can. I don't know how many if we're gonna get that, but just because who wants to say that anyways. But no, that was very fun. I hope we can remain consistent with it. I just got to come up with some ideas, and hopefully I can come up with a better name here shortly. And me and Dylan have been working ourselves to death, but we have to understand that sometimes we gotta, if you want to do something that you want to do, you gotta set time aside to do it. Yeah, and you can't just like say, oh, I don't have time. Like, no, you got to just set time to do it. But obviously you got to stick to your priorities, and that's what life's about. Stick to your priorities, and whatever you want to do for the rest of your life, you keep it as a side hustle until it becomes your main hustle, right? And that's just how it has to be. And so hopefully we can continue doing this, and people start coming to us to listen more. Anything else you got, Dylan? All right. You guys have a wonderful day, and I'm going to get this posted before the draft day, or before I go to work here myself, so that way it's posted before the day 2 for anybody that listens to it before day 2. It doesn't, it would be dumb if here we talk about stuff on day 2 and it's posted after the draft has concluded. But yeah, hopefully we can get this posted by the end of the day. Yeah, you guys have a great day, and you as well, Dylan. Peace out.